Good morning. I'm standing on the lake trail, and behind me is the tree that over the days of Passover, someone carved a swastika into this tree. Thankfully, the Palm Beach Police Department came and cut out the swastika and covered it up. But yes, on the holiday of Passover, as we were sitting at our seders perhaps, speaking about the anti-Semitism that has pursued the Jewish people in every generation, right here in Palm Beach, someone engraved a swastika on a tree. And then Saturday night, we see a video of Hirsch Poland Goldberg in captivity for over 200 days, pleading for his release. And then we see all the violence and the protests, standing with terrorists and barbaric, savage people in Gaza, supporting Hamas on American campuses throughout the country. What are we to make of this? So at the Seder we said the words, V'hi Sha'amda, and it is this that has stood for us, because in every generation they rise up to kill us, and Almighty God saves us from their hand. And what does it mean? And this is what stood for us. What is this referring to? And our rabbis explain that when you want to look at anti-Semitism, you can't just ask, why is there so much anti-Semitism in the world? Why does anti-Semitism continue in every generation? Why is it that from the Egyptians to the Babylonians to the Romans to the Greeks, all the way throughout the ages, the Inquisitions, the Crusades, the Nazis, the pogroms, and now Hamas, Hezbollah, Iran, why do they all want to kill us? The other question that we have to ask is, why are we even here in the first place? Why is it that a tiny nation that is less than 2% of the world's population, with a country which is smaller than the size of New Jersey, is the obsession of the whole world? We can't make any rational sense of why students on college campuses would support terrorists who put military bases and terrorist equipment and ammunition underneath schools and hospitals. It makes no sense. There's not even a close comparison between them and Israel. It should be obvious to everyone that they are evil. But yet the hatred of the Jews and anti-Semitism blinds them. And the question is not why there's so much anti-Semitism, but why are we even here in the first place? How is it that historically we survived every single enemy, despite the fact that we were few in numbers and defenseless throughout history? How is it that we are the only ancient religion that is still here, a civilization that is still here today, despite numerous, countless attempts in every generation to destroy us? And this is what V'hi Sha'amda is answering. It's answering in this. You know what this is? The covenant that God made with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah. The covenant that God made with the Jewish people at Mount Sinai. Because you see, everything we're experiencing, both the survival, the miraculous survival of the Jewish people, and the anti-Semitism in every generation that we discuss in V'hi Sha'amda, was all foretold by God. It's in the Torah. Look in the book of Leviticus. God said, you will be dispersed at the ends of the earth. You'll be driven out of your land, but I will gather you back in and bring you back to your homeland. That is the only explanation rationally why we're in the land of Israel. Why after 2,000 years of exile and after 6 million, which is basically 4 years of continuous October 7th, every single day, 6 million Jews murdered, we came back to the land of Israel miraculously, defying all explanations. 3 years after we came eyeball to eyeball with the angel of death, we were reborn in our national historic homeland. And right after Israel was created, 5 nations, invading countries, tried to destroy us. But yet we are here. Why? There's only one explanation. It is this covenant, is this promise that God made to our ancestors and to the Jews who stood at Mount Sinai. And therefore, as we see all this hatred, as we see all this anti-Semitism, we have to fight it with every fiber in our being. But at the same time, we have to realize that the only thing that has kept us is the covenant. And therefore, we have to renew that covenant with God. Because only that covenant with God, through the Torah and the mitzvot, will give us the moral, spiritual clarity to be able to understand the context and the framework in which we as Jews exist in this world, that it's not natural, and we can't explain it with natural reasons, because there is no rational explanation to this hatred that persists in every generation. Just like there was no rational explanation to the blood libels of accusing Jews of using Christian blood for the matzah. That's so too, there's no explanation to the anti-Semitism on campuses. It's the same blind hate, but at the same time realize that our existence is completely supernatural as well. So therefore, don't try to explain it with natural causes. Fight it with the best natural causes you have, but realize you exist because of a higher hand in history, which is Vihi Shamda, this covenant that God made with the Jewish people. Natan Sharansky famously survived 9 years in Siberia and the gulags of Russia for being a Jew and wanting to go to Israel. And one of the ways he survived was he had a little book of Psalms that his wife Avital gave him, that he would read from every day, that gave him strength, encouragement, and inspiration to survive as a Jew. Especially Psalm 23, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil, for you, God, are with me. And he finally was released and went to Israel and fulfilled his dream. And one day he was on a line in a bakery before Shabbat in Jerusalem, and there was a woman who was a teacher standing behind him, and she realized Natan Sharansky was standing in front of her, and she said, Mr. Sharansky, it's such an honor to meet you. I actually just told the kids in my class this week the story about your little book of Psalms that kept you alive spiritually for 9 years in Siberia. It's an honor to meet you. And Mr. Sharansky reached into his pocket and he took out his little book of Psalms and he says, do you mean this book of Psalms? And she said, could I hold it? Could I read from it? And he handed it to her, and she held and caressed the old frail pages of this little tiny book of Psalms. And then she turned to him and said, tell me, do you carry this with you wherever you go? And Natan Sharansky looked at her and said, no, I don't carry it with me. It carries me wherever I go. What has carried us for 3,336 years since we got the Torah, and going all the way to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, is the covenant, the Torah, the promise. All of this was predicted in the Torah. That's how we see and understand that God is with us throughout all of this, because it was all foretold to us. Let us embrace our supernatural existence, miraculous continuity throughout history, and return to that covenant, because that's the only thing that will carry us through this dark period of Jewish history. Have a Chag Sameach.